I'm John Dennis. I'm running against Nancy Pelosi.
We have the most beautiful state and one of the most beautiful places in the world, and people are leaving.
I'm gonna catch you when all the cameras aren't around, and I'm gonna you up. Oh, try it.
He's the chairman of the San Francisco GOP, and he's running against House Speaker Nancy Pelosi.
Step back, everyone.
All right, welcome to the John Dennis Report. Thanks for joining us. Glad to have you today. Very busy day. Lots going on. You know, it's funny. One of the things that we talk a lot about national issues, but there's so many things happening locally and in the state of California. San Francisco is a bottomless pit of disaster, and I'm going to get into that when I talk about the second topic today, the real reason for woke. But I did want to start with something that I've been thinking about for a while, which is this. I think that what we need is a day where all of us, all Republicans and libertarians and people who are not part of the progressive cult, all of us change our social media profiles and our conversations require that people refer to us as they and them. Now, why? And first of all, if you're on social media, particularly Twitter, and you see someone who uses says that they're, first of all, anybody who puts their pronouns out there, whether they're he and him, his, put their pronouns out there, you know automatically where they stand and what kind of a lunatic they actually are, right? But then you have the people who are want to get referred to as they and them. And I noticed this recently because the I didn't realize this. The completely evil Chrissy Teigen was asking desperate for attention, Courtney Stoddard, I think her name is. When she was 16 years old, Courtney Stoddard became known for marrying a 50-year-old actor. Chrissy Teigen was sending her direct messages, private messages, begging Courtney Stoddard, then a 16-year-old girl, to commit suicide. I mean, wow. I mean, listen, I've done a lot of crappy things, I suppose, to people. Much of them sort of inadvertent. But I mean, I couldn't even imagine asking someone to kill themselves, much less a 16-year-old girl. I mean, Chrissy Teigen's got some serious problems, and so that's the reason why her products are being deplatformed from big companies. But in any event, one of the things that came out of that was that Courtney Stoddard refers to herself as they and them because she's, I guess, non-binary, whatever that means. And listen, I don't want to dismiss people, but I mean, I really don't entirely understand what that means. But in any event, she refers to herself as they and them, and wants everybody else to as well. And the article's all written about her dutifully use those pronouns. Now, my own position is that people who refer to themselves as they and them, or who want their pronouns identified, are just desperately in need of attention, desperately seeking attention. So what I think we should do is we should all use they and them, and watch how fast the people who want to use those pronouns flip out. All of us, okay, fine. We're all they and them now. That's it. You're no different than the rest of us. We are all they and them. And watch how people freak out. I want to get a little momentum on this. I think I'm going to change my profile and encourage other people to do the same thing. If you can, refer to yourself as they and them in your profile, and insist that people call you that in real life. And let's see if we can't get some momentum on this and then kill this nonsense. It'll be dead within a week, I suppose, if we actually got some momentum. All right, let me move on. to another topic that I've also been thinking about for some time. It seems to me that we're reaching a critical moment in the woke wars, and that how you can tell that is because folks on the left are being eaten alive by other folks on the left because they aren't sufficiently woke. And that's the way these kind of revolutions go. The left always ends up eating itself. It's happened over and over and over again. It happens when they've won the war. I always think about this documentary on BBC that was describing Osama bin Laden, something of nightmares. It came out in, I think, 2011. And in it describes that when North African countries were trying to break free of colonial rule from France, they got more and more vicious. And what happened was the most vicious people ended up leading that movement, so that when France actually said, okay, fine, we're out, you guys are independent countries, and those people, those vicious people were leading, they weren't necessarily, they couldn't turn it off. They were who they were. They weren't necessarily so focused on actually good at getting, of breaking free of the colonial rule from France. What they were was vicious, and they just happened to be targeting France at the moment. But now they're just vicious people, and they need a target. So what happens is they target the other people around them. That's what they do. And sooner or later, when the external enemy was removed from sight, they turned their sights on each other and then tore each other apart until eventually the reasonable people came in and put them all down. And then they had independence and stability. We're starting to see that on the left now. We're starting to see where the left is consuming itself, attacking itself, going after some of its most outstanding members, and we're just beginning to see the start of that stage. And so it's been, because I'm seeing that, it's reminding me of what the real reason for all this woke stuff is. You'll notice that the woke folks can't, they can't argue with you. What their positions are completely ludicrous. They make no sense whatsoever. Let's take one position: defund the police. Okay, you want to defund the police? Then it is your responsibility at this point to make sure that everyone you and everyone you know, doesn't ever call the police. That includes if you're being robbed on the street, if someone has broken into your home, if you have an intruder who's got a weapon pointed at you, if someone's beating you to death, someone's stealing from you, don't call the police under any circumstances. Okay, that's it. You want to defund the police? I mean, so you use this sort of reductio ad absurdum argument, and you see how insane it is to suggest that we defund the police, that we don't have public safety protection. And I get that there are flaws in that in the system. I'm not suggesting that there aren't. I think there are probably better ways of doing safety, but this is the one we've got, and it's not bad. It's not the worst thing in the world, and defunding it isn't really what these folks are about. What they're about is creating chaos, because they survive in chaos and they thrive in chaos. So it's obviously a ludicrous position. But that's not the point. The point is to put out positions that are ludicrous precisely because they're ludicrous. That's the goal. See, because here's the thing that people who are in cults will probably tell you, is that there's a comfort in sharing a lie with one another. When people in a cult are saying things that they know aren't true, deep down, they know they're not true, and they're supporting those things that are not true with other people who are doing the same thing. It's like we're together. We're in on this together. It creates a camaraderie and a connection and unites them in a way that that they don't have a connection anywhere else. It's filling a gap for them. Maybe they miss this in their familial connections, and so as a result, they try and find it with the lie. But that's the truth of it. The lie controls them. The lie also controls decent people as well. Decent people. There are people who don't want to see minorities and poor people constantly in trouble with the law. They don't want to see that. And so they might, for some period of time, say, yeah, it makes sense. It's the police's fault that they're going after these poor folks all the time. And so it also is a lock on, and these people are leveraging the decency of people who might not necessarily agree with the woke crowd on everything, but they want to be supportive. They want to find some sort of a solution. And if this is the loudest solution presented to them, then they'll jump on that just because that's the thing that seems to make sense. Because they don't want to pick on people who are not doing well and then going to prison and on top of it. Okay, setting aside the fact that people commit crimes. All right, fine. So there's a certain amount of control, influence over those kinds of people as well, leveraging people's decency against them. So let's sort of recap to now. We've got the lie uniting people who are in the cult who just want some sort of connection with other people, and they use that as a way of doing it. The woke crowd and the lie actually leverages the decency of people who aren't like too aware of things, but it leverages their decency because these are people who feel badly that other people are not doing well. But the big reason, the real reason for the whole woke thing, I mean, those are two really powerful things. It creates groups, it connects people, and it creates a momentum. But here's the real reason, is that the premise of the left has completely failed. That the government can step in and make things good. Government can come in and cure all by directing its quote unquote largesse at certain people. So, like for example, the welfare state. The premise of the welfare state is that we can step in and we can just shore people up and we can help people and we can give them opportunities, even though they may not have the standard nuclear family. We can support them so that they can live fulfilling lives. Nature doesn't like shortcuts, though, and if the government steps in and does that, that means that they're subsidizing a certain type of family. And that old adage is as true now as it's ever been. And that is, if you subsidize something, you tend to get more of it. So what's happened is we're seeing a subsidization of non-traditional families, and that's creating problems in society. Non-traditional families tend to produce more criminals, and irrespective of skin color or anything else, it's just non-traditional families, non-nuclear families. Let's just say a family where there's no father, where the government replaces the father, tends to produce more criminals, and people have problems. And so what's happening is we're looking at the evidence of complete and abject failure of the welfare state, the corruption of the welfare state, the corrosion of the welfare state on society. And rather than face that failure, the woke Democrats have come up with this. The Democrats have come up with this new program, the woke program, and put that out there and said, it's not us we're not the ones who are failing. What's failing is the system. This corrupt capitalism, this corrupt system of freedom and free markets. This is what's failing. And because it's run by people of a certain skin color, it's systemically against people of other skin colors. So, in other words, rather than accept the complete and utter failure and promises from the welfare state, they want to just create some nebulous boogeyman and say that's the reason why certain groups are failing. Not that the Democrats have targeted people for whom they feel sorry and want to give them support in ways that they feel are going to help people, but have completely failed, rather than accept their own failure and say, okay, look, we tried this experiment, it hasn't worked, let's try and do something else. Rather than do that, which is the kind of the rational thing to do, no, what they do is they create this woke argument as a way to protect their ego and, frankly, protect their power. And the result is that they are now perpetuating a failed system that is crushing lives. And consequently, there's no other conclusion to come to than the welfare state has become an evil in society. It's that simple. When we're at a point where we have to invent whole systems of lies to protect a certain group of people who want to retain power at the expense of other people who are suffering, whole communities suffering because of the outcome of the programs that have created this power. That is complete evil. It's totally and completely evil, and that's why I think we're starting the end game here. I think we're past the middle game. I could be wrong, but first of all, the system can't keep going on forever. Not only that, but frankly, minorities who live in these predicaments, they're not stupid. You might be able to fool them or pretend, get them to think that you're pretend, concern for them. They might buy that for a little while, but sooner or later they're going to be like, hey, wait a second. They keep promising stuff and they're not delivering, and they're making things worse. So you're going to start seeing, you've already begun to see the rejection from people within minority communities, and that's going to continue to grow. Just because you can't live the lie forever. Sooner or later it catches up with you. So anyway, that's the real reason for woke. It takes, it unites people in the cult. It leverages the decency of people who might not be in the cult, but just who are sympathetic to the plight of other people. But really the big reason is it's a massive diversion, a distraction from the failure of the welfare state that the Democrats have championed. And by the way, some Republicans have too. Republicans have been there, pushing or supporting the welfare state. They won't repeal them, peel back those programs just simply because most times they don't want to be called racist. But the truth is that these programs are actually making things worse for poor minorities, poor people in general, poor minorities in particular. Now, combine that failure of the welfare state with the destruction of the manufacturing base in this country, and you have a recipe for the exact situation that we're in today. So anyway, that's kind of my main topic for today, is the real reason for woke. I think we're in the beginning of the end game. I think it's going to get resolved. I don't think it'll get too messy, but some people are going to go down in flames. And I think largely you're going to see over the course of the next decade people turning away from it. Some people will continue to leverage it, but I think it's going to become, more absurd and be rejected by more people on the left. And I'm hoping, and I think, you're going to see a return to a more traditional left, and we'll and hopefully get some stability. And maybe even some change in terms of the nature and the execution, the way the welfare state is actually, delivered. Those services are delivered to the American people. In any event, I want to thank you for joining me today. It's been a pleasure chatting with you about this. This is a topic that's been on my mind for some time now, and grateful that you're here. We'll be live again on Monday at 2 o'clock on the West Coast and 5 o'clock on the East Coast. And if you wouldn't mind, please subscribe to us on YouTube. In fact, today I'm only going to push that. The John Dennis Report on YouTube. I'm not going to talk about any of our other social media. You can find us elsewhere if you choose to. We have big followings on other platforms, but today we're going to just go only YouTube. Please follow us. Punch that subscribe button on the John Dennis Report, and we'll keep you up to date on the things that we are doing. Thanks for joining. Talk to you soon.